Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to Surviving the 2-Week Wait. This video concept was requested on Instagram, and I thought it would be a fun video to do to go over kind of my thoughts during the 2-week wait. If you have ever actively tried for a baby, you are very familiar with the hell that the 2-week wait is, but also go over my tips for what I do during those 2 weeks. And then in the second half of this video, I'm going to do a literature where I review some of the books that I've recently read. I think this is helpful because my number one tip is to distract yourself as much as possible. And for me, the best way to do that is to get into a good book. So I thought I would give you guys some book recommendations in this video as well. Literatures are also incredibly requested, and I don't do them very often anymore, but I still read just as much. I just feel like, I don't know, I feel like less people are interested in it, but I thought that it really fit into today's video. So I'm gonna start by telling you guys how I tackle the 2-week wait. I'm gonna break this down into physical, emotional, and mental tips. So starting with physical, I always treat my 2-week wait as if I'm already pregnant. I know that some people say that they will continue drinking or doing whatever they want to do up until the first positive test. That is probably scientifically okay, because if you think about it, the first week of the 2-week wait, your baby isn't even implanted yet. And so anything you're drinking isn't even going to the baby. But I personally just like to go ahead and treat my body as if I'm already pregnant. So I do not drink. If I'm gonna drink ever, it's going to be in the first 2 weeks of my cycle before I've ovulated. And even then I've cut down so much. I limit my caffeine to 1 cup of coffee a day, which is very difficult. I've been living off 1 coffee a day now for a couple of years, and it's really, it's tough with a toddler. Like, I crave a second coffee every single day, but it is really important to make sure that you're doing the things that they say to do to make sure that your body is prepped and as healthy as they can be for that pregnancy. I think if you're someone who has tried for a baby for a long time, maybe you are a fellow infertility mama and you've been trying for months or years, it's kind of hard to be super strict about the 2-week wait because it is literally every other 2 weeks of your life. And it's one thing to try for a baby for a couple months. It's another thing to be on year 2 or 3 or more, and you're still every other 2 weeks in this 2-week wait period. I'd like to say that it gets easier, but I really don't think it does. At least for me, it has not gotten easier. I have not gotten less crazy during that time, and I'll go over like my kind of timeline of how I feel because I think some people can relate to that. And that's why I say that some of this is up to your own comfort. If you are someone who, works out really hard, then you can and should continue to do that even through your 2-week wait. You shouldn't have 2 weeks of like being really active and 2 weeks of not. If you're someone who really enjoys your glass of wine at night, then again, that's going to be something up to your own comfort. Some of these things are going to have to be more of a lifestyle change because it is like a longer term commitment. So for me, I gave up having more than 1 coffee years ago, because it's been years that I've been trying for the second baby, and that has just become a lifestyle change. It's not something I only do during the 2-week wait every other 2 weeks. That's just something I consistently have been doing. I've completely given up Diet Coke. I've been Diet Coke free for 1.5 years now, which is huge because I was a Diet Coke addict my whole adult life, even through my pregnancy with James, literally until 1.5 years ago. And so that's completely cut out. And I try to eat healthy. I make sure to take my prenatal vitamins every single day. A lot of women don't realize that you should start your prenatal vitamins at least 3 months in advance of when you want to get pregnant. So if like my husband and I are going to start, or my partner and I are going to start trying for a baby soon, go ahead and get on your prenatals. It doesn't hurt you to be on them. I have been on them for years. In fact, I don't think I ever went off of them from trying with James because I used them postpartum, and then I just stayed on them. It's good for your hair and nail growth too because it has a lot of B vitamins. That brings me into the sponsor of today's video, which is Ritual Prenatal Vitamins. My absolute favorite prenatal vitamins. These are the ones that I use. I've used these for over 1 year. I feel like it was even longer than that. These are the best vitamins. If you actually do research and you look at all of the different levels, but also the transparency of where these ingredients come from, Ritual really is the best. I've compared them. I truly feel comfortable that these are the prenatal vitamins that I want to put in my body. You take 2 capsules a day and it provides you and your baby with 12 essential nutrients before and during pregnancy. It's vegan friendly, non-GMO, gluten-free, allergen-free, and has no added sugar. It has a delayed release capsule design that's gentle on your stomach, which is very important in early pregnancy when you're so sick. It has all of the important nutrients you need like omega-3s and vitamin D, but it also has the methylated versions of folate and vitamin B12, which is very important because up to 40% of women actually have a genetic variant that makes it difficult for their bodies to process folic acid. So the methylated form is easy for all women to process, and that is huge in a prenatal. Not all prenatals have that. You definitely need to look into that. In addition to prenatals, they also have a women's and men's multivitamin, a 50+, a postnatal, and a teen vitamin. It's delivered straight to your door via a subscription for just over $1 a day, and that is well worth it. Ritual is hooking you guys up with a discount, so if you would like to try it, you can go to ritual.com/10EF and use the code 10EF for 10% off your first 3 months. Thank you so much, Ritual, for sponsoring another video and being a great partner for me, both on YouTube, but also my body, prepping for a baby that I really, really hope to have. This is a total side note, but I'm in Kingsport right now, if you can't tell, and my mom has been cooking a slow cook roast all day since like 8 o'clock this morning, and it's almost dinner time, and it smells so good. Like the whole house smells like this delicious cooking roast. Like I'm so excited for dinner. But anyway, this video is helping me get distracted. See, and the whole video is about being distracted from things that you're like focused on, like the 2-week wait. So that pretty much covers my physical part of my advice. Treat your body like you're already pregnant, take your prenatals, limit your caffeine, limit your alcohol. For me, I don't limit my physical activity, but I do tend to take it easy on the days where implantation might take place. This is not scientific. They don't tell you that you need to do this. I have just felt like the times where I've taken it more easy during my 2-week wait, for me in particular, I've been more likely to get pregnant than the ones where I've been traveling and like doing all this other stuff. So I try to, if I can, if I happen to be at home, obviously you can't like work your whole life around every other 2 weeks of a very long period. But if I'm at home, if I'm just kind of doing my own thing, I do try to take it easy on days like 5, 6, and 7. I've always been an early implanter. I've always gotten my test early. So for me, it's not even really a 2-week wait. It's more like an 8 or 9 day wait. Moving on to my emotional advice. This is more like, I'm just gonna tell you kind of how I tend to go through my 2-week wait in terms of like where my anxiety hits. This will be different for everyone. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who don't even struggle through the 2-week wait. Like they don't really pay attention. They don't even test unless their period doesn't arrive. I am not one of those people. I know there are a lot of people like me out there, so hopefully some of you watching won't judge me too harshly, but I'm more of a person who hyper focuses on it and I can't help it. So all of my advice is about trying to distract myself from that. Usually the first 4 days for me, sometimes 5 days depending on the cycle, is very easy. I don't really think about it much. I know that everything that could be done for that cycle has been done. This is after ovulation is confirmed. And like I said, those first couple days, I'm not really thinking about it. I'm not focused on it. And those are the easiest days. And I'm lucky that I have a couple of days at the beginning where I can get through without thinking about it, because I have read that some women are hyper focused from night 1, and that would just be really hard. Usually on days 5 or 6, that is the first day where I will kind of be like, I wonder if it may be starting to implant, because they say like day 5 or 6 is the first day that implantation can take place. And because I've always gotten my test really early, I've always kind of been aware on those days that maybe something's happening. I can always tell in my comments the women who have gone through this and people who haven't. People who haven't, like they don't get it, and they actually don't get it in kind of like a judgmental, mean way. Like they're like, I would never feel that way. Usually on day 7, I have the urge to test. I usually don't test on day 7, although it is the earliest day that I've seen real results where women have tested on day 7 with a very sensitive test. The first response early result 6 days sooner is the only test, in my opinion, that can give you a result that early. And I've tried all the tests, trust me. Like, it's been years, all the tests. I have only ever gotten a positive on day 7 one time, and that was the cycle that ended up being a chemical pregnancy. And I know that there are many women out there that get positives on day 7 that end up in a healthy pregnancy. But for me, I feel like that's almost a bad sign, because it was, I know it's coincidence, but I feel like because it was the only time that I had a chemical pregnancy, that it wasn't a good thing that it was that early. So I do not test on day 7 anymore. I was testing on day 7 up until I had that chemical pregnancy, which was December of 2019. So it was quite a while ago. Now I don't test on day 7, but day 8 is the first day that I consistently test on. And I have had 2 pregnancies where I've gotten a result on day 8. One pregnancy was day 8 in the morning, and one pregnancy was day 8 at night, but I hadn't tested in the morning of that one. So I very well could have had a faint positive on the morning of day 8. Again, using the first response early results. Once I hit day 8, I'm actually okay in terms of the 2-week wait, like whiplash, because I think once I have control over being able to test and knowing that I'm in a window where I can get an answer, even if the tests are negative, I still feel like I have control over the situation. Maybe that doesn't make any sense, because you would think, well, you don't have any control over the situation on days 3, 4, and 5 either, but I don't know. Being able to test just makes me less crazy. And I know that testing early for some people makes them more crazy. It's just kind of one of those things that you have to figure out for yourself. If I haven't gotten a positive test by day 10, I pretty much feel like I'm out. I do still continue to test on 11 and 12, and then I don't even test on day 13 usually, and my period is due on day 14. So if I haven't gotten a positive by day 10, sometimes 11, depending on like if I'm not positive when I ovulated, then I am pretty much sure that I'm out for that cycle. So the hardest days for me are days 5, 6, and 7. And those are the days that I have to distract myself the most, or else I just think about it constantly. It's the weirdest thing. Those are the days where it's most important to distract myself, just to, you know, fall into a different world. So this is going to depend on you. What distracts you the most? Is it watching a movie, binging a new show, maybe like exercising really hard, or throwing yourself into work, or organizing your house, or whatever it is? For me, it's reading. That is the most solid way for me to completely distract my mind from whatever's going on. So I tend to read every free second I have for those days. Obviously, I have a toddler that I take care of, and I do have a job, so it's not like I'm reading from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed. But anytime that I have free time that I'm starting to think about stuff, I read. And I do have some good books that I've read in the last couple of months, and I thought I would do a little review on them and give you guys recommendations, not just for those of you going through the 2-week wait, but also for people who just want books to read. The first one is called The Circle by Dave Eggers. And the reason that I found this one is I actually Googled books similar to the TV show Black Mirror. So I wanted a book that kind of had like a creepy edge to technology, and this one was recommended. I read it, I loved it. It is very similar to Black Mirror. It's not as creepy as Black Mirror, but it does have that edge of like if technology got out of control. So what this book is about is it's about this girl who gets a job at this really prestigious technology company that is supposed to be kind of like a cross between Apple, Google, and Facebook. Like it's the biggest, coolest technology company. They sell things like phones and computers and stuff, but they also own the big social media platform. So it's like an all-encompassing, like if you think of all the social media and like Apple put together, it would be this company. And she gets a job there. She thinks it's the coolest thing. She moves on to campus. It's very much like I imagine Google headquarters to be in California. And it's just very cool. It starts off as a very cool job. She's in customer support, which is where most of the new hires start, and then they filter out. Like they only hire through the company. So climbing the ladder is really easy within the company once you are in the company at the ground level. So it starts off really normal. She's loving it. She's, part of this new exciting company, and there's this beautiful campus with really delicious food and everyone's friendly, and the company really pushes for you to not just work there, but like be very well rounded there. So they want you to take fitness classes and take art classes and go to social events and hang out with other people who work there. And as the book goes on, you see how she is expected more and more to be only involved in the circle, and anything that she does outside of the circle becomes judged within her workplace. And then it turns into this whole thing where the company decides that full transparency is the only way that humans are going to stop things like crime and all these bad things from happening. And full transparency means absolutely no secrets. So like, you wear a camera on yourself 24/7. The only time you're allowed to take it off is if you are going to the bathroom, and even then you only have like 3 minutes from the time you walk into the stall to have your camera off. And it's just this whole thing. It's crazy because it starts really slow. It's very much like Black Mirror. It starts slow and it starts realistic, where by the end of the book, you're like, how on earth would anyone have agreed to this? But because it happened in such small steps, you can see what happened. And then it gets into like, it's not just the circle, it's like the whole world. They get into like the politicians, and they start saying like, if the politicians are not willing to be fully transparent behind all of their meetings and their doors and all their secret contracts, like literally everything, then they're untrustworthy. And so then you have a couple of politicians step forward who are willing to be transparent, and then all of the ones that don't want to be, immediately like people are suspicious of them. And it turns out that like, you have to be transparent. It's this whole thing. It's really good. I mean, there's a lot more to it than that. And like I said, it's a slow build. So you do kind of get the feeling from the beginning that this isn't all that it seems, but it just is it's a really interesting story, and I really enjoyed it. If you have any other books specifically that kind of remind you of a Black Mirror episode, I would love for you to recommend them to me. I really liked this one. I tried a couple others on the list where I found this one and I didn't really like them, so I kind of moved on to a different type of book after that, but I would be interested to read more like that. The next book is called The Mermaid by Christina Henry, and this is so magical, so ethereal. It gave me such strong feelings. Like, I loved this book so much. It's so different from so many books that I've read lately, and I really would love to find more books that are like this. But it is about a mermaid, a real mermaid, and she's not like a Disney fairy princess mermaid. She's a northern Arctic mermaid. She looks like a scary fish with claws and like sharp teeth and scales everywhere. But she is raised, with a bunch of sisters under the ocean, and her parents are always telling her, you can't go to the surface, you can't trust humans, blah, blah, blah. And she's a rebel, just like in The Little Mermaid. So one day she is, following a boat or doing something crazy, following humans, and she gets stuck in a fishing net, and she thinks it's over. But the man, he's by himself fishing in a small boat off the coast of Maine. He pulls her up, sees her, makes eye contact with her, and lets her go. And she swims back into the ocean, swims away as fast as she can, but she can't stop thinking about him. Like, she is so curious about him and why he let her go, because it was so against what she had been taught her whole life about how humans are cruel and they'll kill you and all this. In this story, mermaids can turn into humans by touching human soil. So they're both. They can be human whenever they want to, and then as soon as they go back into the water, they turn back into a mermaid. So she decides to get out of the water in the middle of the night and like go up to his cabin and like look at him. I don't really know what her plan is. I think she's just like obsessed with him and finding out more about him, and she watches him from the water for a little bit, and then she decides to go up and meet him. They fall in love, they get married, she stays human. They live in this little cabin on the rocky coast of Maine, and they have this really lovely life together. And then one day the husband dies, and she spends many, many years by herself, just not wanting to leave the cabin that she had this great love in. Meanwhile, in the south part of the country, P.T. Barnum's circus is taking place, and he catches wind that there is a Mermaid living in the north of Maine. She has kind of become a little bit of an urban legend in her area. The people in the town near her are totally creeped out by her. They totally think she's a mermaid. And I don't know how this like rumor began, but P.T. Barnum hears about it and decides he has to have her. He wants her for his circus. So the main chunk of the book is about her being part of his circus and how at first she wants to be part of it, and then as time goes on, he's crueler and crueler to her, and she realizes that she really has no escape. And it's interesting because you get this story of like P.T. Barnum's circus, and obviously it isn't accurate because he didn't actually have a real mermaid, but he did have a Fiji mermaid in his circus that this kind of roughly plays off of. He calls her the Fiji mermaid, so it's like taking his real life story and changing it around a little bit to allow for like a real mermaid to be part of the story. But it's actually done very realistically. It obviously has that kind of fairy tale aspect of like, you know, mermaids aren't real, but it's done in a really realistic way. It's not done in this like Disney princess living in a castle under the water, beautiful, making deals with sea witches way. It's like done in the most realistic way it can be. And it's just a really interesting story. It had me hooked the whole time through. And I was also really happy with the ending. So the ending actually is like really, really special. It made me very happy. So if you want a book that has that kind of ethereal feel to it, but also has this like cool concept of like learning more about the backstory of like the circus life and everything, then that book is for you. The next one that I have to recommend you is called An Enchantment of Thorns, a Fae, Beauty and Beast Retelling by Helena, Rockwood, and Elle. So this one is for all of you who were fans of A Court of Thorns and Roses. I came across this one and at first I thought it was just going to be super, super similar, but just not as good because I feel like that one just really is hard to top it. It's so, so good. If you haven't read that one, I recommend reading that one first. But I guess, I don't know, maybe you could read this one first. This one also was really, really good. It surprised me at how good it is. It's different enough that it's like a totally different story, but it has a lot of the same like elements of magic in it. Not like it's the same universe. Like it doesn't feel like it copies the Court of Roses and Thorns. Is it that or is it Thorns and Roses? I never know which order those are in, but it's definitely similar enough that if you liked one, you'll like the other. It's about a girl who gets given to the Fae Court as part of a tithe, and she doesn't know what to expect. She thinks she's going to be killed right away. Every year, one girl from her town gets taken for the tithe, and it keeps the rest of the town safe by basically sacrificing one young girl every year, I think on their 17th year. And it's this girl, Aster. She's the main character of the book, and she gets sent to live with a fae named Thorn. And like I said, at first she thinks it's this like horrible thing, and then over time she learns that there's a lot more to the story, including a curse that needs to be broken in order for certain things to happen. I definitely don't want to give spoilers for this one. It's so good, and it also does a good job of you don't really know who to trust. And there's a good twist in it as well. So I really enjoyed it. There is a sequel. I read it. There's a third one that doesn't come out till January. I was super bummed when I finished the second one because I didn't realize the third one wasn't out yet. And I like rushed through them. I devoured them. They're very good. I felt like they were fast reads. They're long books, but they're fast reads, if that makes sense. Both of the first two books I recommended, The Mermaid and The Circle, are both, I think, a little bit of a slower read. Like it took me longer to get through them, but this one I could not put down. It was so good. Like I said, if you like A Court of Roses and Thorns or Thorns and Roses, whatever it is, you'll like this. And it's similar enough without being a copy. I felt like it was its own story. There's also a really cool element that comes into play where, unlike the other series, it's not Fae against humans in the sense that the Fae has all the power and the humans don't. This storyline, the humans actually do have a little bit of power that makes them more of an equal, and the Fae doesn't realize this. So there's this really interesting storyline that develops that I think is unique to this story and makes it a little bit more like even, which is fun. It's a nice twist on the kind of Fae and human relationship type storybooks. So I hope you guys enjoyed these recommendations. I read every single night for about an hour before bed. I'm a big reader. I would love your recommendations. I read pretty much everything. I read historical novels, murder novels, suspense novels, dystopian teen novels. I'm kind of open to anything. So if you have books that you've just really gotten sucked into lately that were just like the best book you've read lately, I would love your recommendation. If you can, write me like a little mini blurb of what the book is about. Because a lot of times people will just recommend a title. And if the title doesn't jump out to me, I don't always look it up because it just, you know, if I get 50 recommendations, I don't always look them up. But if you give me a little blurb about what it's about, that might like grab my attention. Just like when I'm giving these reviews, I don't just say, oh, I liked this book. I say like a little bit about what the book's about so that if it's something that sounds interesting to you, you can look into it more. So anyway, those were the books that I have most loved in the last couple of months. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was a strange concept, especially for those of you that are not trying for a baby, maybe have never tried for a baby. The whole concept of how crazy people feel during the 2-week wait is really something that's hard to understand, I think. And so I think I'm just asking for you to give a little bit of grace to all the people going through it, not just myself, but anyone in your life who's trying for a baby. It's very hard to want something so badly and have so little control over something that is such a huge thing in your life. You know, like whether you're pregnant or not is a huge, huge life-changing moment. It is wanting something that you would think would be easier to achieve than it is. And there's a lot of emotions that go into it as well. So, anyone who is trying for a baby who's in your 2-week wait, I am there for you. I feel you, girl. It is so hard. We will get through it together, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much, Ritual, for sponsoring another video. I really love working with you guys, and I will see you guys in my next video. Goodbye.